bread and butter pickles. That's right, during the Great Depression, cucumber sandwiches were a very popular thing to eat, mostly because there was nothing else. So basically those stories our grandparents told us were true. But anyway, what they would do is take all the extra cucumbers and pickle them so that during the winter, they could take bread and butter and make sandwiches with them. Of course, today times are a little better, so now we just make and eat these because they're totally delicious. And of course, to get started, you're going to need some of these pickling cucumbers. And all we're going to do is slice these into 1/4-inch rounds. And I'm just going to use a knife because I'm only doing a couple pounds. But if you want to use one of those fancy slicers, you can. And sure, if you want to double your production, do 2 at once. That's just basic math. But anyway, we're going to slice those up, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer those into a bowl. And then to that, I'm going to add some sliced onions and peppers, very traditional in this recipe. And I'm going to use some red Fresno chilies to give it a little heat. But you can use any kind of pepper. Bell pepper is a very popular choice. In fact, I think green bell pepper would be the original choice. So that's it for the vegetable matter. And now it's time for the most important step of this entire process, the salting. We're going to pour over a ton of kosher salt. And what's going to happen, that salt's going to cure those vegetables. It's going to draw out a ton of water, and it's really going to change the texture. And that's what's going to give these pickles their signature snap. And by the way, you really want to use kosher salt for this? All right, regular iodized table salt's not going to work. And if you can't find kosher salt, go to the hardware store and ask for pickling salt. We will cover that in plastic, and we will pop that in the fridge for at least 2 hours. Okay, 2 to 4 hours is kind of the range. And during that time, if you can remember, pull it out and give it a mix. And as you're stirring, you're going to notice the color's kind of changing. The skin looks like it's getting a little bit shriveled. Okay, so that's exactly what we're looking for. And this is what mine looked like after 2 hours. And we'll pull off the plastic, and you can see just how much liquid has come out. And then what we need to do is put this in a colander and rinse it incredibly thoroughly under cold running water. We want to rinse off all that excess salt, but don't worry, they're not going to be bland. They've already absorbed the perfect amount of salt. And once those have been thoroughly rinsed, we will let those drain while we make our brine. So in a saucepan, we're going to put a couple cups of sugar. We're also going to need some mustard seed. We also want some celery seed, some black peppercorns, a little pinch of ground cloves. We're also going to put in some turmeric. I'm also going to add a little bit of freshly sliced garlic, and then we'll finish up with vinegar. And I'm just using plain white distilled vinegar. And then before we put this on the heat, I'm going to add a little bit of water. So we'll go ahead and place that on medium-high heat, give it a stir. And as soon as that does start simmering, what I want you to do is wait 2 minutes. Just let it cook like that for 2 minutes. And then at that point, we will add our cucumber mixture. So we'll dump all that in. There should be just enough brine to come up over the top. And then very important, we want this to almost come back to the boil, but not come back to the boil. As soon as you see those tiny bubbles forming around the outside, and it's looking like it wants to start simmering again, that's it. Turn off the heat. All we need to do now is let this cool down to room temperature, and we're ready to chill our pickles. And as these cool, you're going to see they turn into the most gorgeous color. And while these really do taste much better cold, I'm going to go ahead and eat one now. Why not? And even at room temperature, just so delicious. And then other than transferring these into some jars, you're pretty much done. So I'm going to go ahead and keep mine in one of these screw top mason jars. And that's going to keep for a long time in the fridge. And of course, if you wanted to keep it a really, really long time, you could can these using the hot water bath method, and they'll last for years. And they say these will taste better after a couple days in the fridge. But you know what? They say a lot of things. And for me, these taste great almost as soon as they're cold. And above and beyond the amazing taste, the texture on these is going to blow you away. It's soft and tender, but at the same time, it has a crunch to it. All right, that skin has that little crispiness, which of course is the difference between something that's pickled and just a slice of vegetable.